Hey guys! So today I wanted to talk about decks that I am getting to know. I initially came across this idea from another tarot YouTuber called Tarot for Heathens, which I'll link her channel down below. And I've been doing a lot of thinking about deck consumption essentially, and kind of some shadow work around it. I think it's pretty easy to get caught up in it. And I've spent a lot of time lately going through my decks that I've acquired and trying to figure out, or make sure rather, that I am keeping only what really serves me in my collection and what I really resonate with, and trying to be very mindful of any purchases I make, which in my current financial situation, that is now really none, but that's okay. Especially through the pandemic, many of us have seen that or faced that, and it is what it is. But it did give me a moment to pause and really focus on what I need to be thinking about when it comes to my consumption. And the thing is that I love art and I love having a collection of tarot decks, and I really enjoy seeing so many different artists' interpretations of tarot because it's just something that's so incredibly fascinating to me. And I love supporting artists. But I also really want to be able to keep a very intimate connection with the decks that I choose to have in my collection. So instead of doing um really a haul video or anything like that, I kind of thought, well, why don't I slow down and pull out the ones that I'm really starting to get to know, that have come into my life over the last year or so, through trading or purchasing or what have you, um, and maybe talk about it through that. So I'm grateful to be able to have access to a group on Facebook, or several for that matter, where I can trade tarot decks if they don't resonate for me, and they can go to someone that does. I really try to do that a little bit more often than I purchase, but it doesn't always work out that way. And the downside to doing that is that I don't support the independent artist directly, which I also try to do. So, um, but yeah, let's just get into the decks that I am really starting to get to know. So I've got Oracle and Tarot here, and I'll just start with the Tarot. This one's probably going to be a long one, but it's some fun for you guys. So the first deck that I have here is the lovely Omens Tarot. Um, I have been really curious about this deck for quite some time, and thankfully I did find it in a trade. I just really enjoy the artwork and the kind of, I don't know, overall sassiness to it, and the fact that it kind of has a little bit of a nerdy vibe too. I notice some references to video games and like the different swords and wands and stuff. And I'm like, oh, I know where that sword's from. Plus, I just find the artwork really cute. So this is just kind of a fun little deck. The other thing that really brings me a lot of joy is the fact that the pentacle suits, like there's a lot of cats in this deck. So I don't know, I find it a really cute, fun deck for sure. And I'm very, very picky about those kinds of decks that I bring into my collection. A lot of my decks are deep or dark or spiritual, or it's hard to explain. But so there's that one. The next one that I got in a trade was the Destiny deck, and this one I'm getting to know as well. I wasn't really sure I would like this, and then the moment that I got it, I was like, actually, I like this a lot more than another deck that I had, so I ended up trading that one away. And it's weird because I don't really, you'd think that the keywords would kind of deter me, but they've actually been extremely helpful in getting to know this deck. And I would really love to have the guidebook, but it's actually quite expensive. So I have not gotten my hands on that. But I always like enjoying why the artist chose what they did for the images. And I think the biggest reason why for a deck specifically like this that doesn't have any really human figures, I would want to know why they chose that for each of these cards. But it's a very lovely deck. It's got a lovely tactile experience, and it's just very beautiful. I found it very easy to connect to. Moreover, as I said, another one that I had in my collection and thought, okay, well, I think I'm going to pass that on now because this one kind of does it a little bit more for me. So, yeah, it's a beautiful one. All right. The next one is the Foragers Daughter Tarot. I was very curious about this one and thankfully, again, was able to come across it in a trade. And it's got these rose gold edging. When I traded it, it didn't come with the guidebook, so I actually went to the artist's website and I did purchase that. Upon looking through this initially, I actually was a little bit afraid that I wouldn't like it. And then I got the guidebook and I really decided to dive into it, and I really enjoy this deck. I guess, again, as I was just saying, with the artists sort of explaining why they chose what they chose, the artist of this deck does a phenomenal job of that in the guidebook, and like really down to everything, why they chose the specific plant, why they chose the specific tree, and then the moon phases make an appearance in different some of the different cards, so they kind of utilize the moon phases in there too, which I thought was really cool, and it's just a fun element to it. So yeah, this one surprised me. I actually really enjoy it, and I'm very, very picky about animal decks too, so I only have a very few in my collection, but being able to look at the tarot through nature and the animal kingdom is something that I honestly find also very fascinating. So this one was a surprising connect. Well, so bumping my light here. The next one is the Tarot of the Crone, and I have this is by Ellen Lorenzi Prince. I'm sorry if I'm not saying the creators' names as I go along here. Some of them I honestly don't remember, but I will have everything linked down below. Um, but yeah, this is by Ellen Lorenzi Prince, and the reason why I know that is because I have her other deck, the Dark Goddess Tarot. I have the indie version, and I was curious about this one. I actually went through and edged it in black when there's a cat fur, of course. Um, the reason why I was curious about this one is just connecting with that crone energy. That is the next stage that I will have in life, although I still am, I suppose, relatively young. Um, but, also connecting with goddess energy. And while the artwork in this is rather esoteric, at least it would appear that way when you're flipping through this deck. This deck is deep and very profound, and it has a lot to say. I've actually been using it this month for my moon readings, and it's been really wonderful. Now, I will say though, right, as far as my knowledge, this deck is now out of print, so that's one shame. She did have a few copies that she had brought back, I believe, but I'm pretty sure at the time I'm filming this now, they are sold out. So I'm a little sad I'm showing you guys a out of print deck, but I will link her website down below. Although I can't make any guarantees on the status of the availability of this deck. I got lucky and someone was willing to trade for it, so I was very, very grateful for that. But this is the Tarot of the Crone. It came in this little black bag instead of a box, which I'm totally cool with. But yeah, that is another deep dive deck for me, for sure. And then the next one is the True Black Tarot. I've known about this deck for quite some time. I love this right here. It says, "It is only in darkness that we see the stars." Oh, love it. But I was always drawn to it, for say, but I hadn't quite been ready to pull the trigger on it until very recently. And my husband was very kind and got it for me as a present. So Yeah, this I still, again, decks I'm getting to know. So this one I actually have not started working with yet. All of the other ones that I've shown you so far I have worked with. But this one is just beautiful, honestly. The amount of color that is used here for it being rather minimal really brings the images alive. And um I don't know, there's something about this that is just so exquisite and wonderful and just stunning. The artist hand paints the edging too, the sides of the deck. So when you first get it, they kind of stick together a little bit. But I I imagine after using this a bit, it will sort of lighten up on me a bit. But it's so pretty. Again, just an exquisite deck. This is probably my favorite card for some strange reason. Just Temperance, I don't know, in this deck. The Devil's incredible too. Just beautiful. Um, yeah, it's a gorgeous one for sure. Um, and I'm really grateful to have it in my collection. Just again, like those edges, they'll loosen up a bit, but so that is the True Black Tarot. Put that away. I'm hoping not to bump my mic here. I might have to start stacking decks up here. Okay, last two for my tarot decks, and then we'll talk about Oracle. This is the Witch's Wisdom, another one that I was actually able to trade out for a deck that I just didn't connect with in my practice. And this one I've only worked with a little bit, and I quickly found that I probably would mostly use this for readings, for spiritual readings or readings pertaining to my practice. The guidebook is really, really wonderful in this deck. This is by Phyllis Curott. And for the life of me, I feel terrible, but I cannot remember the artist's name, and it's a shame because they did an incredible job. But I will have this linked down below, of course. Um, this is an interesting deck. They change the order of the major arcana. So honestly, although it does follow the tarot system in a way, it does it the Fool's Journey backwards. So it's fascinating in that sense, but everything that you see here, it's all very earthy and grounded and woodsy. And although many people purchased this deck because Phyllis Curott was one of the first people that they read books on witchcraft about. I was a little bit late to that game on reading a lot of her stuff, but it definitely was early in my journey. So looking at this is probably one of my favorite cards. So is this one. Looking at this, it does still bring me back to reminding myself of what it means to be a witch and what it means to connect to all that I see here in the sense of honoring the cycles. And I don't know, there's something very, very comforting I find about this deck, but also sort of visceral. It's hard to explain, but I can't wait to work with it more. I'm still getting to know it, as I said, hence the title of this video, but I like it so far. I really do. I actually like it more than I thought I was going to, so that's another thing that's always wonderful when that happens. Just set that one up there. The last tarot deck I have is one I need a new bag for, but this is the first tarot deck I've ever bought off of makeplayingcards.com. And this is called the Naturescapes Tarot. I had a minute there. I had a minute. I'm sorry. I have not worked with this deck yet. And let me tell you, to be perfectly honest, it's strange because I'm a photographer. However, I actually don't usually vibe with photography decks. But my love for photography comes through photographing landscapes. I think honestly, for me, it's kind of a spiritual thing to capture nature in all of its beauty. But this one really did it for me. For combining that love into a tarot deck, this was incredible. I just really connected with it, at least in the sense of flipping through the imagery. I've not worked with it yet, but honestly, like looking through it now, I can still look at these images. Also, I know where that is. That's in Oregon. Um, and know the cards, at least know the meanings and why these images may have been chosen. But it's a beautiful deck, deck, deck. It's a beautiful deck. Um, it's very well done, and I really enjoy it. Again, another one that really is wonderful to connect to nature and all of its beauty and all of its glory. So this is the Naturescapes Tarot, and like I think honestly, if I'm having a bad day, I'm just gonna flip through this deck and be at peace. Seriously, it's wonderful. It's one of those ones that, again, I'm surprised, but it did it for me. It just did something that I needed. All right, so on to the oracle, which I'm probably gonna have to start like stacking decks up here over to the side. We'll make it work. We'll make it work. Um, so the first one I'm going to show you is the Soul Trees Ascension deck. This is another deck by the same creator who does the Soul Trees. I have the Soul Trees Oracle, and I absolutely love it. And I actually found this one on her website and thought, is this the same? I don't think so. Looking through the images, it seemed like it wasn't. And I was afraid that some of the cards would be the same in the sense they're not. There's only about two or three that are similar for the keywords, but like different enough that it's fine. You know, that I really don't have a problem with it at all. I keep the note that she sent me to. So yeah, I have not worked with this one a ton. I worked with it for a few days right when I got it in, and I have actually been working with Oracle in a different way, experimenting with using my Oracle cards as a jumping off point for a daily reading. So that's actually been really rewarding, and it's helping me reconnect with kind of spicing up my tarot practice. But this deck has a lot to offer, and it's a really good workhorse as well as the Soul Trees Oracle. And they are two different ones. So if you like the Soul Trees Oracle, I do recommend getting this one just because the artwork is different in a sense, but it's still hers. And I don't know, it's just there's something about her artwork that's really beautiful, and I love trees. Like this one. Oh, look how pretty that is. It's so wonderful. It's just incredible. And there are some shadow cards too, which I really enjoy. I love a good balanced deck. Just beautiful. So beautiful. So that is the Soul Trees Ascension deck. And this is her business card, which again, I will put the link down below, of course, but since I had that handy, I figured I'd share it. All right. The next up is the newest in my collection. I've honestly only had it for a few days, and I pre-ordered it, so I waited a while for it to come in. But this is the Spread Machine Oracle, and I it's by the Fables Den. She's here on YouTube. She has an Instagram. I will link her stuff down below. But I thought this was such a cool idea. I just, first of all, can we look at this cute edging? Oh my god, that's so adorable. But really, this is such an awesome idea. It is all for spread crafting. And it has categories too. So we have the seeker focused areas, light work, shadow work, success, expansion. She does have two other expansion packs that go with these decks. I think one of them is called the Quest, and the other one is called, oh, I don't remember for the life of me right now. Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't own those yet just because I couldn't spend that much at that point in time of pre-ordering, but I will definitely pick up the expansion packs to this deck because just the possibilities with something like this is incredible, and this was such a fantastic idea. And she really gives you a lot to offer in the guidebook. So many different things that you can do. Um, so it was really, really well thought out, and it's just honestly like it's a wonderful companion to cartomancy. And really, I mean, yes, please. Just so good. Like I love it. I'm so excited to work with this. And I cannot wait to dive into it and kind of unlock spread crafting and hopefully get myself more accustomed to making my own spreads as well, because that's something I really struggle with. So, oh, just so good. So good. Oh, do you ever do that, guys? Or like get your cards stuck when you're trying to put them in? And then you're like, no, my sweet baby, don't die. I love you. Because I do that. I totally do that. All right. Look at this. So cute. I love it. Oh, love it so much. Okay. Um, so the next one is the Black Mirror Oracle. I keep it in this bag, but because it didn't come with a box or anything. I actually trimmed this deck. This is by Jessica Shaw. Um, I found this on Etsy because she actually is, if I'm not mistaken, she's either in New Zealand or Australia, and I feel terrible because I can't remember which right now. But she it's really hard to get a hold of this deck because of shipping costs. And she actually started distributing her decks to a um, uh, shop here in the USA called Raven in the World Tree, which I've already ordered things from them before. So I was really excited when I was browsing and had noticed this because I wanted to get this deck, and I I couldn't afford the shipping costs. So now I was able to get it. Yes, the Norns. Um, I did have to trim it down though because it had big black borders around it and it was too big for my hands. I couldn't shuffle it. I have long fingers and I still couldn't shuffle it. But this deck, her artwork is so pretty. And it has deities, it has planets, and yes, Odin, please. The Dark Moon, that also was one of the kickers for why I wanted to get this deck. But it's not solely a goddess deck. It's not solely a god deck. It's not solely a moon phase or astrology deck. It's kind of everything combined into one. So it's really, really enjoyable to work with just for kind of that all around. But I mean, ugh, Scotty. I'm getting all lovey for the Norse gods because I'm a Norse pagan, but um I don't know, there's just her artwork is so stunning, and so far as I've got one, missed one. They have the elements in here too. Um, I've just really, really enjoyed working with this so far. And once I trimmed it down, it was a lot easier to work with and a lot easier for me to really connect with, especially because this artwork is just so pretty. And even though the black borders were fine, I think it just was I needed to be able to hold it for one and be able to shuffle it. But it's a wonderful deck. I honestly should edge it at some point here. So that is the Black Mirror Oracle. The guidebook for this is fantastic too. Next up is another one that I finally got a hold of, at least one edition of it. Um, and that is the Oracle of Oddities. This is by Claire Goodchild, the same person who did the Memento Mori, which I just did a video on not that long ago, as well as the Antique Anatomy Tarot. This, I believe, is the second edition. So I'm on the hunt for the first and the third to complete this whole deck. But For the longest time, I was actually really worried that I would be a little turned off by Claire's artwork, and I'm not. I'm actually the opposite. I'm super fascinated by it, and it's actually become a very pleasant surprise to me. And I have greatly enjoyed the connection that I have specifically with the Memento Mori, but also the Antique Anatomy. So when I was able to trade and get this deck, and hopefully start collecting the Oracle of Oddities, I was very thrilled to be able to open up my, well, welcome this into my collection and start working with it. So I know a lot of you have seen the Oracle of Oddities, but it's beautiful. All of Claire's work is beautiful. All right, two more. The next one is the Sacred Creators Oracle. This is one of those ones that I actually specifically waited for it to come out for onto mass market from a mass market publisher, specifically for a couple of reasons. One of which is the fact that really I wasn't sure how I would feel about it enough to pay a an indie deck price. Uh I just and it was if I got curious enough, much like some of the others, I would have probably traded for it with something that I just didn't resonate with. Because again, as I said, I like to keep my collection very functional. But also I was watching the progress on Instagram as it came to the point of this deck being released, and she had added more cards, kind of switched things around, and what she added, I was like, okay, I can get behind that. I feel like this will probably really work well for me. And I enjoy this deck a lot. Um, as a creative soul myself, I think that it speaks to that. As a person who is definitely doing a lot of self work and self healing, I think it definitely speaks to that as well. I'm not super big on affirmation decks, and I think this probably could be categorized as that, but this is one that just it works for me. It definitely does. It's not too sugary or light washed, I guess I could say. It's just the right amount of wonderful. It's perfect. And again, this has actually been really fantastic to throw down on a reading as an additional message or even a jumping off point, or sometimes I will use this as like a key phrase in my reading and kind of work around it, and then when I write in my journal I will have like this key phrase in larger text or a more bold point. So that has been really kind of fun to play around with. But it's beautiful, and I love creative wise. I love how she went about it. Just the images are wonderful to look at, and this deck gives me a great sense of peace, but also, I mean, a great sense of like empowerment as well. And it's just the right amount that I needed. All right. And then the last deck that I am getting to know is Yggdrasil Norse Divination cards. This was actually a Yule gift from a good friend of mine, so I've had it since about that time, and I still haven't really gotten into getting to know it, which I feel sad about because it's beautiful, and I definitely, aside from throwing the cards everywhere, have every intention on getting to know it more. And I think the big thing is that like I feel like this guidebook's gonna have a lot to offer. Hopefully, I have not read it yet, so again, still getting to know it. But I work with the Norse gods, not exclusively, but for the most part, those are the main deities in my practice, specifically Odin, Frigg, Freya. But I know Hela's in here, but she's kind of further down, which is a shame. But there's a lot of deities in here that I'm actually not familiar with. So that'll be interesting to explore as well. Lesser known gods. And working with more with the energies of the Norse pantheon. Any way that I can incorporate that deeper into my practice and connect more with the energies that I primarily work with, which is the Norse pantheon. As I said, not exclusively in my practice, but pretty exclusively. um, Hairspray. But yeah, I really, as I said, anything I can do to connect myself further to the Norse pantheon is going to be a win for me. And if I could do that in the form of cartomancy, absolutely. But really, mostly, use I use meditation and journeying and astral travel and runes to really commune with the Norse gods for the most part. But being able to do it this way was kind of a interesting way to do it. Or at least, we'll see how it goes. That's my thought. That's how I feel it might go. You never know, though. Everything always tends to surprise you, especially when you are pagan. It's like, well, I did not expect that to go the way that it did, but here we are. So, yeah, this is the Universal Norse Divination cards. Oh, and I'm struggling to get them back in the box, of course. So, yeah, those are the decks that I have been kind of getting to know over the last while here, and I just thought I would share them all with you as a way to hopefully support all of these artists, but also really kind of to bring myself back down to a grounding point of I have these beautiful pieces in my collection that deserve my attention, and they deserve it more than hunting for the next thrill, really. I don't need to be doing that. I need to be mindful and present with what I have here that is all wonderful, and I'm blessed to have it. So there's some shadow work for me. There's some thoughts I have. And I hope you guys really enjoyed watching. As always, blessed be.